How did how do you assess the last couple of days?
It was interesting. We got some. It's exciting, but at the same time, I think like all teams, you're projecting with these kids, and whether you're picking in the first round or the seventh round, you're trying to take a guess as to what a kid can do for you down the road.
How much input did you have with the scouting staff as you guys were making the first pick and throughout?
Well, by the time I got hired, almost all these players had stopped playing hockey. So you have to let people do their jobs, but certainly they know the type of players I like, and I think that we've got some prospects. These guys have done some good jobs, especially in the later rounds. They've found some talent, some guys that we have trying to develop through the system. But I certainly talk to them a lot about competitive people and people with upside on skill. And like I said, after that, you just sort of hope that kids develop.
Knowing Michael Nylander as well as you did that play a role in the Leafs drafting his son first overall?
I wouldn't say my relationship with the father played a role because our scouts had William rated very high. But I did think it was important when you are picking that early and you're picking a player, in the first round, if you have an opportunity to speak to the player and speak to the dad and know the family, and we did a lot of homework, and I certainly I had a great meeting with William and Michael on his draft day. Thought it would probably be about a 10-15 minute meeting. It ended up being close to a 2-hour meeting, and I knew what kind of a talent he is, but I just the type of person he is. He's a great kid. Here he is on his draft day, and he's sitting around in a meeting, listening to his dad ask questions and do a little hot stove lounging. Just impressive kid, disciplined dad, disciplined kid. I like Mikey as a teammate, but I wouldn't say it played a tremendous role other than he confirmed what our scouts thought of him.
Are there similarities though, like when you watch clips of Willie, do you see kind of things that Michael did as a player?
Well, I think Michael's definitely had an influence on him. I think Michael's pretty honest assessment was that there are certain gifts that William has that Michael wished he had as a player, and but puck possession and smarts, work ethic, discipline. I think that they have very similar traits in that respect.
You played with a lot of talented players in Detroit. Obviously, you're one of them. But how important is that to get that top end skill that can really be a game changer for a competitive team?
Well, again, you're projecting how these kids could develop, but for me, he's an exciting swing, at a guy that could be a high top end talent. And as far as some people writing some things about his character or things like that, part of me was a little pleased to read it before the draft because I knew it wasn't true. I did a lot of homework on him. I called players that I played with in Detroit that had played with William over in Sweden. It was important for us to draft a Western Canadian kid in the first round, like William.
Calgary native, right?
Calgary native. But he, it was important for me to do that kind of homework, and then I'll be honest with you, I did it a while ago. So everybody I talk to and people whose opinions I really respect, guys who are in dressing rooms, couldn't say enough about the kid.
What would you expect from him in training camp? I mean, Dave Nonis last night said, he's going to be able to compete for a job, but what would you like to see from him, and what would you expect from him in his first pro training camp?
Well, he's a confident, competitive kid. So I'll just let him come to camp and sort of see where it goes from there. I don't want to, I sort of have my own internal thoughts, but if he's ready and the best place for him to develop and maximize his full potential is with us, then no one's ruling that out. But if in order to maximize his full potential, we feel that there's more development that needs to happen somewhere else, there's no rush.
The pace of change with this team has been slower than some people might have expected, but you traded Gunnarsson today and you brought in some new faces. What would we expect July 1st with free agency, either in terms of bringing Bolin back or bringing in some new faces?
Well, I mean, I don't think that July 1st is ever a great day to rely upon. It's certainly not something as I go forward. There are certain days certain years where you have to be involved, but I think if it's something that year after year after year you're relying on July 1st to build your team, you're putting yourself behind the eight ball. I've made it clear that I would like David Bolin to be on this team. There are other players I like that leave an imprint on a game that you remember playing against for whatever reason. Skill, speed, tenacity, whatever it is. But as far as what I can predict, it's all I can say is that it's, if you're relying on July 1st year after year after year, it's going to be tough.
How involved have you been in terms of agents and pending free agencies in this 5-day window? How many guys have you talked to?
I've reached out to a couple personally, and we're talking about them all the time. And like I said, you've got competition, you've got other teams that want those same players. I guess I'd be worried if I was reaching out to a player and he said nobody else had called him. So there's nothing definite, and we'll see. We'll see where it ends up.
The defenseman, changing defenseman today, is that as much about tone as anything in terms of toughening up what you've got back there?
Well, I think he brings an element for us, and again, I think people have a little bit of a misconception. If they really watch this guy, I think people are looking at his size and assuming that he's a slow-footed defenseman. I've watched him play. I'm incredibly impressed with a guy with that size, his skating ability. He's a tight gap guy. He doesn't back in. He's surprisingly quick, and reached out to a few other teams that I know were also, after we got the deal done, not before, but other teams that I knew were pursuing him hard and asked what they liked about him as well, and a lot of them said his speed, which when you're talking about a guy that size, we obviously all know he's going to bring, he makes people pay a price. He's honest, but he's tough. He's a hard worker. He's a low maintenance guy, but he competes. He makes people pay a price, and you have to be able to skate. And people that don't think that this guy people that don't think he has skating ability really aren't watching.
Do you think that's something you lack in front of your own net, though, is the ability to make other forwards pay a price?
I would say it's something that I'm not going to say about what we lacked. It's just something that I like, and but yet you can't just, in this day and age, you can't just be a guy that stands in front of the net and hacks and whacks people. You have to be able to skate and move. He brings both of those to us.